The Devil's Pulpit by Robert Taylor. So let's pick back up where we left off. We left off on the lecture titled The Cup of Salvation. The Cup of Salvation. Okay, so the theme scripture for this lecture is Isaiah 63, I believe it is, verses 1 through 8. 1 through 8, okay? And what's the end of the whole matter regarding the scriptures according to the author? Quote unquote. So he was their savior. So he was their savior. For he said, surely they are my people, children that will not lie. The author makes the point that children, almost all children, discover how to lie. According to the author, all children lie at some point, right? Some make a habit of it. Not because they're bad, but it's because they're discovering. They're discovering their mind, their thinking ability, desires, fears, okay? And that you religious people, you Hebrew Israelites, Christians, etc., he says, they are my people, children. So as children, you are incompetent. You cannot enter into a contract. The good thing about that is that you can use that to end any contract that you are in that you didn't realize that you were in. Okay, or you didn't realize your status as a child, or as being incompetent, or as being a minority. So it's two sides to that coin. All right? Next. So he was their savior. So who is this he? The Tetragrammaton? Jesus the Christ figure, or both of them in a triad Godhead? Or are there others? All the rest of the solar deities. So we spent a lot of time in the presentation before this one going through Jacob, Jacob, Jack -OB, Jacob. The remix of Jack-Ob is Jacob, Jacob, Jack, Ob, which is the ancient name in Greece for God the Father. If y'all want to know more about that, go back and check it. Okay, go back and watch number 86, The Devil's Pulpit with Ptolemy's Tetrabiblios. Okay, y'all, so let's pick up where we left off. Let's begin on page 229. Page 229. Y'all remember what was said about metonymy? That literary concept where you use one name to refer to something that's known by a different name. For example, the U.S. government is often referred to as Washington. Washington said, Washington did. Or President Lincoln is referred to as the Great Liberator. Okay? On page 228 and 29, we read this in the 87th Psalm in review, quote unquote, The Lord loveth the gates of Zion more than all the dwellings of Jacob. 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 So the 12 sons of Israel are actually what, y'all? Jacob is the grandson of Abraham. He is the father of the 12 sons. So the 12 zodiac signs. The kingdom of the heavens, Aries, all the way over through the scales of justice, the scales of righteousness, Virgo or Libra, depending on what era of time you are looking in, okay? So, the Lord, capital LRD, loveth the gates of Zion, the summer months, March through September, are the kingdom of the heavens, where the days are longer than the nights. That's the kingdom of the heaven, okay? All right, clear? Okay, so the Lord loves Zion more than all the dwellings of Jacob. That is, or which means, more than all the other signs of the zodiac. So the love lords the scales of righteousness, the balanced scales, more than all other signs of the zodiac. The Lord loves righteousness. The Lord loves evenness of the days and the nights. Evenness is concrete. The evenness of the days and the nights, the astrological or the natural phenomena solution is 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of night. The abstract remix is justice, is righteousness, is equity. Okay? It is sinless. So the Lord loves sinlessness. The Lord loves righteousness more than anything else. There is your religious doctrine remix of natural phenomena. Do you have eyes to see, scholars, that perceives the natural phenomena that has been remixed into religious doctrine, that has been anthropomorphized or personified into a moral character of a deity? Justice, equity, sinlessness, righteousness. Do you have ears to understand what the Spirit is saying to you? Or are you still bewitched? Are your eyes and ears still uncoupled from your mind, where you cannot perceive what's right there in front of you? Hopefully, if you've been following my work, hopefully your eyes are in the process of being coupled back to your mind, and so are your ears. I hope that's the case. If you're still undergoing cognitive dissonance, that's okay. It's normal. You're going to feel a certain kind of way. You may even dislike me or hate me for saying it. But give it some time, and your rational mind will work it all out, even if it takes months or years. Okay? Because once you get this sweet science, you'll never want to go back to goat's milk. milk for babes. Let's let the author continue. So the Lord loves Zion. The Lord loves Zion. The gates of Zion. Is it the gates? No. The Lord loves, yes, the gates of Zion more than all of the dwellings of Jacob, more than all of the zodiac signs in the Maserat, the Zoad. That is, or which means, than all other signs of the zodiac, which are mansions of the sun sun. JC, the Christ figure himself said, in my Father's house, in Jack, Jack, Ob, in God the Father's house, in my Father's house, in Jacob's house, Jacob, which is Jack-Ob remixed. In my Father's house, there are many mansions in space. In space, there are many constellations. In fact, there are 12 that form the zodiac or the zodiacal belt, the Zoad, the old path. As the prophet said, the Most High says, I told my people to return to the old paths. But them low down SOBs said, no, we won't do it. So the Most High says he's going to do what? Curse you in the streets and at home. Deuteronomy 28, 15 through 68. Why? Because you refuse to return to the Most High, to follow his commandments. The instructions handed down to you by our ancient foremothers and forefathers. In religion, you've been taught that it's called the Mosaic Covenant or the Mosaic Law. In nature, we call it natural law. Constitutions that govern the commerce between men and women, between families, kinfolk, bloodline, and treaties that govern commerce between nations, which are families attached to a specific landmass sharing a common culture and heritage, which would include monetary systems, food, etc. Exodus chapter 20, verse 12. Okay, I don't know how to pronounce your name, but hello back to you. Pikafan. What does that mean? Okay, y'all. So here we are. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. Some Bible translators say it this way. In my Father's house, there are many abodes. Yes, in space, there are many zodiac signs. There are 12. There are 48 constellations. According to our ancient ancestors, not modern astrologers. And there are also planets. And this is what the Christ figure was talking about. In my Father's house, there are many abodes. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. But that makes no sense. How can there be many mansions? In my Father's house, there are many mansions. Well, when have you ever seen a mansion inside of a house? Makes no sense, right? So in my Father's abode, in space, there are many zodiac signs. Yeah, there are 12. And they are organized in a belt, the Zoad, the Maserat. Okay, y'all? Okay? This is the old path. That's the old path that you are supposed to return to, not some religious beliefs, not some set of doctrines, but it is natural law. Natural law. And it's evident that every living thing, that everything on the earth plane has consciousness and is impacted by the celestial bodies, their movements and their energies. That's just evident. Okay? An extreme example or an obvious example would be to go to, let's say, Alaska. And let's say they have 24 hours of darkness for 6 months or so. Many people will become depressed, and many of those will commit suicide. They'll commit suicide. And that's the fact. Check it. So the absence of sunlight induces depression in many people. And many of those people are triggered to commit suicide. Period. The moon governs many of our biological rhythms, like the sleep rhythm, women's menstruation, and on and on and on. Natural phenomena. Let's continue. The dwellings of Jack, Ob, Jack hyphen Ob, that is of God the Father. And it is JC, the Christ figure, who popularized this notion that God, that Zeus, that Apollo, that Jupiter, that Odin, Woden, Goat, you name the solar deity, is the father of the people. That in history was pagan. This biological relationship between the deities and man is pagan. In fact, it has its origin in the Nephilim. Okay? And beyond the Nephilim, it has its origin, it was extended or also applies to the hybrid troglodyte. The hybrid troglodyte. The Neanderthal. Genesis chapter 1, created creature. The Amorphodite. Clear? Clear? JC did that. And then they spread little seeds. I think there's 3 verses, as I mentioned before, 2 or 3 verses in the Old Testament that speaks of a God the Father. Why did they do that? To prepare your mind for this notion of God the Father in the New Testament. In other words, a hybrid. Who is your father? Who is your God? Israel, Isis, Ra, and El, Christian. A hybrid, a Nephilim, a Raphaim, O Anis, Dogon is your God. Which is why in religion, in Christianity, you are what? Civilly dead. Because you are under the rulership and the authority of the Dogon and the Raphaim, mermaids. JC's mother is the mistress or the whore of the sea. Check it. That's the etymological meaning of her name. Okay, a mermaid, a hybrid. There are pictures of Mary with a fish, JC represented as a fish, sucking on her breast. Oannes, the half fish, half man. The mitre, the mitre hat that the Catholic Church, the Pope, the bishops, and the cardinals wear in worshipful honor of the Dogon, of Oannes, of the Raphaim. And this is the power of the Holy See, Roman law, maritime, admiralty, Catholic, Christian, canon, corporate policy. Coming to you through Unum Sanctum, the Sestaki Trust, the Doctrine of Discovery, and in the U.S. corporate de facto government uses manifest destiny. Okay? So they took the Doctrine of Discovery, changed its name to manifest destiny. Okay? And this is how the curses are being implemented or executed against you through public policy. And there you are with servitude, prisoners of war camp, Jim Crow, the Black Codes, Children and Family Services, all of it. And there you are, a sitting duck, a stateless person, having no nationality, having no constitutional or treaty protections, as you are a Christian or Muslim or Jew or Hebrew Israelite, etc., etc., etc. All right, you out here with nothing. Quote, in my Father's house are many mansions. And by essential metonymy of language, that remember, that's replacing one word for another. Quote, metonymy doeth new names impose. So, President Lincoln, the new name is the Liberator. And things for things by near relation shows. Okay? In other words, connotative linguistics. We're going to take the original word for something, a city, a man or a woman, or natural phenomena, and give it a new name. Call it by something else. For example, the S-U-N, sun. Well, now we're going to call that Jesus Christ. A new name for the same thing. See, the author is cracking the code for you. Can you see and perceive? Can you hear and understand what the Spirit is saying to you? To love the gate could never mean anything else than to love the good entertainment that you get at the gate. Well, what else are you going to love a gate for, right? Except for what you get when you're at the gate. And to love the crater, y'all remember the crater? The crater is a cup that has two handles, kind of like this. So one handle and then a second handle over here. And what's inside? The blood of the grape. Wine. Okay? The blood of the grape. And to love the crater could never mean anything else than to love the good stuff that was in the crater. So, do you see? Changing the names of things. Connotative linguistics. Why? To fool you. Why do they want to fool you? To keep you in the curses. To keep living off of your estate. To keep you in bondage. This is what your religious leaders are doing for you. And you don't have a clue. Unless you've been following my work or others like me, right? You Hebrew Israelites, you jumped out of the fire pan and into the fire. For I believe, says the author, we should all of us be innocent enough of any excessive attachment to the cup. In other words, we shouldn't drink too much because you become an alcoholic and that will destroy your life. If the cup were as empty as the good stuff as Christian prosecutors for blasphemy are of good feelings. In other words, the author is referring to the fact that he began to tell his congregation and anyone who would come listen to his lectures, he would tell them the truth using science, that the Gospels are astrotheology, and that's nothing bad in itself. In fact, the Gospels were written for a good purpose. But the priesthood, the priestcraft, got a hold of the Gospels and used them for a extremely destructive purpose. The Gospels were originally written by the ancient Coptic Egyptian priests. Priests were not religious at all. These were scientists and engineers who studied the cosmos and who found themselves under attack by war, under threat of death and destruction of the ancient science that we call astronomy and astrology, which at that time were synonymous terms. So they wrote them in a coded fashion and called it the gospel, where Jesus is the sun and his 12 apostles are the 12 zodiac signs, etc., etc., etc. Okay? Then they were translated into Latin, and from Latin into Greek rather. But during those translation processes, the hybrid troglodytes and the renegade Moors got a hold of those documents, edited them according to Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 8. Check it in the Amplified Bible version. And from that science book that we call the Old Testament, they added a New Testament and they attached the Gospels. And they started teaching people that these fictional characters actually lived and were real people. And they forced it upon the people through terrorism, through warfare, through land theft, all of the curses. And here we are today, believing that fairy tales are real, in a state of enchantment, through the sermons of your religious leaders, through the literature of your religious leaders and Bible translators. All of them. All of them. and your hymns and songs that you sing in the church or the assembly or at camp or in the congregation, or in the mosque or in the temple, whatever you call it. You are being constant. Oh, by the way, also on YouTube, when you listen to these lectures, when you attend their classes, they are bewitching you, casting destructive spells on you. And you'll never know it. You'll never know it until you learn etymology, grammar rules, science, which would be astronomy and astrology, history, which would include secular history and mythological history. Until you learn about art, for example, iconoclasm, the changing of icons, until you learn about all of the megalithic structures and how to identify the astrology or the astrotheology built into those structures. For example, the statues, right? The statues, the stained glass, the sacraments. See, unless and until you learn these things, you have no hope. You are a sinner bound in hell and going to hell. Why do I say that? Because Christ said it. That's right. He speaks to you in parables so that you will have no chance to repent, so that you cannot be saved. That means what? That means what? That means you're going to hell in a handbasket. And you have no hope. And by the way, JC never died on a cross. Most likely it was Simon the Cyrenian, and we know that through the grammar. So you're ASS out. And it is because of your religious leaders who have misled you, pushed you in the hole, and left you there, only pretending to help you. Now let's continue. Quote unquote, and why, says the psalmist in the 75th Psalm, quote unquote, God, Zeus is the judge. He putteth down one and sets up another. For in the hand of the Lord there is a cup. Sounds familiar, right? And the wine is red. Astrological. Y'all see that? That's the crater. That's the constellation called the crater. Quote unquote. It is full mixed, and he poureth out the same. Now, y'all, the Psalms are full of astrotheology, if you take the time to learn how to decode it. And like him, says the author, I pour out the red wine. I pledge him from the bottom of my heart. So the author is telling you that he is the preacher of righteousness. He is the faithful and true witness who is giving the people their food at the proper time. Why? Because he's telling you the truth. The truth is that astrotheology is all through the Bible, and that the Gospels are pure astrotheology. He's the only one telling you. He's the only one who has been willing to get locked up and killed to save you. How does he save you? By giving you the information. But it's you who have to save yourself. And if he be a judge, just as is the sun sun, when in the scales of September, he gives an equal length of day to all inhabitants of the earth. The devil of any quarrel will he have with me. Why? Because the Most High loves the gates of Zion more than all other dwellings of Jacob. The Most High loves evenness of day and night. The Most High loves justice, equity. He hates inequity. He hates sin. So the author, by teaching you astrotheology, not as a religious doctrine, but the science, the etymology, the philology, right, y'all? The linguistics, the grammar rules, the astronomy and astrology, the history, secular and mythological. He's holding nothing back from you, and neither am I. I'm going sentence by sentence, page by page, paragraph by paragraph, chapter by chapter, book by book. Now, what the hell else can you want or expect from me or this author? I'm not sitting here talking to you, telling you a story, putting you in a situation where you need to believe me or you need to go check it for yourself. I gave you the link to the free PDF. I tell you to print the book and bind it. I tell you to listen to these presentations at least 2 times and then take notes. What else do you want? What else could you possibly expect from me or anybody else who's doing it the way I'm doing it? There is no yesterday, it's already gone. And there is no tomorrow. None of us might be here tomorrow. There's only the glorious now. So, scholar, what are you going to do now? What are you going to do now? Search the internet for the devil's pulpit. See if you can find anyone teaching you straight out of the book. Straight out of the book. See if you can find the Gospels and the Zodiac or any other topic where they're coming to you straight out of the book. And you ain't paid not 1 red cent, not 1 Vietnamese dong, not 1 Philippine or Mexican peso, not 1 British pound, not 1 euro, not 1 Singaporean or Australian dollar. Free. Stand up like a man or a woman. Take control of your mind. Everything is here. And this is the beautiful part, y'all. This is the beautiful part. If you learn these concepts, the U.S. or the Western legal system is founded on these concepts. So if you understand the concepts and the principles that I'm presenting here, if you have interest in taking back your birthright, well, you can do it. The only thing I'm not showing you how to do is the paperwork. But the paperwork is the last thing that you should be relying on. You should be relying on what? What's in your mind. Understanding the principles, the natural law, the hermetic laws, the natural law. The Most High's commandments are what? Natural law. etc. So y'all keep coming and tell other people to come. Now let's continue. Where am I? Okay. And if he be a judge, just as the S-U-N son is a judge, when in the scales of September he gives an equal length of day to all inhabitants of the earth, the devil of any quarrel will have with me. So see, ain't nothing you can say to me. Ain't nothing you can say to me. I never offended him in thought, word, or deed. That's right. To show that this is astrotheology. To teach etymology, philology, grammar rules, linguistics, all of that. Astronomy, astrology, and history. That's not offensive to anyone, including the deity, unless they want you to be ignorant. Then you have to ask the question, why do they want you or need you to be ignorant? Other than what? To have you in a minority or incompetent state so that they can steal and live off of your birthright and put you in bondage and live off of your energy. Everybody see it? Now let's continue. I never offended him in thought, word, or deed, but what will he say to a gang of, notice this, y'all, caballing priests? But what will the deity say to a gang, a street gang, thugs? Y'all know who I'm talking about. Y'all know who I'm talking about, right? A bunch of thugs, a street gang of caballing priests who, when they could never give a rational interpretation of their own balderdash themselves, are for calling in the strong arm of the law to crush and destroy him who can do so. Who is this talking about, y'all? Who has the power to call the policy enforcers? Who can sick the policy enforcers on you? Who can sick Children and Family Services on you? Who can sick the IRS on you? Who can sick the judicial system on you? Who can sick the financial system on you? Take your accounts, freeze your accounts, empty your accounts, get you arrested, locked up, no due process of law. Who has the power to do that? What gang? What street gang? Those who call themselves SWEJ, but are not. Not all of them, but who is it? The TSINOIZ. You figure that out. A better scholar and an honest man than their holy church. That's all of them. The Pope, the Bishop, the Cardinals, all the way down to the priest. All of them. All of the priestcraft throughout all the world could ever boast. Okay? All of them are no good, disgusting, you know what, right? Not talking about individuals, the whole group of them. So if you are in that group, you're disgusting, you're untrustworthy, you are a publicly known liar, RED, RUM, RELLIK. You're all of that. And you're doing it to steal the birthright and put the people and keep the people in bondage, in the curses. Deuteronomy 28, 15 through 68. Tell me I'm lying. Show me. I say, according to the author, it is the wine that puts God, that puts Zeus into good humor. Well, everybody knows that Bacchus loves wine, that Bacchus is the god of wine. We all know that, right? And orgies. Now, Bacchus is God the Father, is Jacob, is Jacob, is Apollo, is Jehovah, Yahuwah, is Yahoo, is Jesus, is Iesous, is Jupiter, is Jupiter, so on and so forth. All of the solar deities are but one. So this remixed deity loves wine and orgies, loves good humor, or rather puts good humor, so the wine puts good humor into God. In other words, the wine, just like it does with you, removes your inhibition. Well, it does that to God. And here's the author's basis for saying it. As in Judges chapter 9, verse 13, it is expressly said that, quote, wine cheereth the heart of God and man, end quote. And hence, in the most beautiful analogy of the moral propriety, indicated by the physical phenomena of the sun, sun, and the scales of justice. So what did he just say here? So this is another occurrence of natural phenomena being remixed into a moral and or ethical code. In other words, morality, Christian, Judeo-Christian morality. Everybody needs to understand this. Effusing the rich blood of the grape into the cup of salvation. Now remember, y'all, here is the autumn equinox. Here is the sun falling down from June 21. Falling down, and it crosses below the celestial equator during the autumn equinox. Okay? So here is the cup of salvation, the crater. The crater is below the equinoctial line and a little bit under. So that when the blood of the grapes, when the flesh of the grape is crushed and the blood rolls out, it rolls right out into the crater. Y'all see it? This is the constellation crater. Now there are two handles, right? This is what the author is talking about. Now let's continue. So that natural phenomena that I just showed you is remixed into, what does the author call it? A moral propriety. Now let's continue. Should man learn that when his own cup of blessedness is full, he should never forget to fill his neighbor's cup, nor ever forget to put the cup of salvation to his own lip. See, take care of yourself too. Don't give it all away, because you won't have nothing for yourself to sustain yourself. But to pledge it in his heart's forgiveness and remission and absolution, and laying aside forever of all notions of sin and damnation. Why? Because it's the autumn equinox. 12 hours of daylight, 12 hours of night. Evenness, justice, okay? Forgiveness. Y'all got it? Forgiveness. Is it clear? It continues. And all their damnation, cruelty, there would be the priestcraft. And all their damnation, cruelty against anybody or anything, and to be ready to say or sing either to Jew, Turk, infidel, or heretic, quote unquote. Then G's a hand, G-I-E apostrophe S, my honest friend, and here's a hand for thine, so you help, give him a helping hand. We'll take a cup of kindness yet for old lang syne. Now, we've heard that those verses before, right? So you help people, okay? Forgive them and help them, even share a glass of wine together, okay? Water under the bridge. Here then is the congruity, the connection, and the moral solution to the physical problem between the shedding of blood, that's the crushing of the grape, right? So crush the flesh of the grape, kill the Christ figure. The blood, the crushed blood releases the grape juice. The crucified Christ, his blood comes out of his body. Okay? So here then is the connection and the moral solution to the physical problem between the shedding of blood and the forgiveness of sins. Okay, well, I want to hear this. I really want to hear this. Wine then cherish the heart both of God and man. An immortal, incorporeal, or unsubstantive deity, a deity you can't see, and a deity who has a lifespan, is no deity at all. Immaterial, rather, a deity that you cannot see. You can't touch him, nothing. You just have to have faith that he's there. According to the author, is no deity at all. The sacred record of God's, of Zeus' most holy word, of which in all this priest written, in all of this Hebrew Israelite, general, pastor, reverend, imam written, and priest insulted, country insulting your intelligence by telling you that these gospel stories are real. I alone, says the author, am the faithful minister and the true hierophant, knows nothing of such an hallucination. See, the author is telling you, I'm telling you the truth. I'm not giving you an abstract deity. You can look up in the sky and you can see the sun. You can see the constellations. You can see the 4 seasons of the year. You can see winter, summer, spring, and fall. You can see the harvest. You can see the winter, the death and destruction. You can see the regrowth and the ongoing generation of spring. You can see summertime where the plants and everything is maturing. It's concrete. It is a cheat invented by the priest to hide the truth of nature. See, if you don't know anything about nature, you effed. You are effed. How you going to live? You don't know how to plant. You don't know how to farm. You don't know how to clean water. You don't know nothing. So the situation that we are in today, everybody almost on the whole planet is dependent on the commercial system for food. Now they can control you. They got you like this by the collar. If you want to eat, if you want to sleep, they turn your gas off, turn the electricity off. Why? Because you've been detached from nature. Hence, astrology, Farmer's Almanac. Science and engineering. Self-sufficiency. Sovereignty. In other words, I'm responsible for myself. I know how to respond. And I don't need you or anybody else, but I'm willing to work with you, of course, because I'm civilized. But there's nothing you can do to me that's going to hinder me in the long term, right? I might have to deal with you in the short term, but I know how to take care of myself. I can grow my own food, etc., etc., etc. Okay? So this notion of a immaterial or this unseen deity is a lie. It's a cheat invented by the priest. Why did they do it? To detach you from nature. How do they do it? By making you ignorant, putting you in the paradigm of religious doctrine, uncoupling your eyes and ears from your mind. Okay? It is a cheat invented by the priest to hide the truth of nature and to prevent rational men from becoming reasonable. That means what? A curse. Make you stupid. What? Everything I just said. It is a dagger of the mind, a false creation, proceeding from the heat-oppressed brain, and of which the brain, recovering itself from the fever of fanaticism, you religious Bible thumpers, to the health of reason, will dissipate the delusion at once, quote unquote. There's no such a thing. So with reason, understanding etymology, philology, grammar, other linguistic principles, astronomy, astrology, history, and mythological history, once you understand these things, you're able to couple or recouple, or maybe even couple for the first time in your life, your eyes and ears to your mind. Islam to all the Moors. I'm Dr. Yasapa from Zion Law School. Thanks everybody for supporting my work. Shalom.